You child abuser! You child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile? Where's Jimmy Savile? Get back! Traitor! You child abuser!
Paedophile protectors!
You paedophile!
Keir Starmer stepped onto the stage expecting applause, but instead he was greeted by the last thing any politician wants: boos, anger, and a crowd that had clearly turned against him. This wasn't just a few isolated hecklers. It was a wave of raw frustration echoing through the room. At first he tried to continue as if nothing was wrong, pushing forward with his speech, but the noise only intensified. Expressions in the crowd hardened, shifting from quiet skepticism to open outrage. Some people shook their heads in disbelief while others shouted over his words, making it impossible to ignore the growing backlash. Any chance of a friendly reception disappeared in seconds. This wasn't ordinary criticism. It was a moment of public embarrassment unfolding right before everyone's eyes. So what went so wrong? Why did people who once backed him turn against him so fiercely? Let's break it down. As leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer likely expected a supportive audience, people willing to listen, maybe even greet him with a round of applause. But the moment he stepped into the room, the atmosphere felt different. There were no smiles, no energy, only crossed arms, doubtful looks, and quiet murmurs spreading through the crowd. Before he had even spoken a single word, the tension was obvious. This was not the welcome he had imagined. Instead, it was the beginning of a moment that would quickly spiral into something far more uncomfortable.
Every stage during this crisis, my approach has been driven by the need to respond to both these tragedies. To stand by the right to self-defense of any nation which suffers terrorism on this scale, alongside the basic human rights of innocent Palestinians caught once again in the crossfire.
As he began speaking, he opened with familiar lines about the economy, repeating well-worn promises of fiscal responsibility and Labour's vision for growth. But instead of nods of approval, he was met with blank stares. Refusing to lose momentum, he shifted to Brexit, attempting the delicate balancing act of satisfying both Leave and Remain supporters. It fell flat. Murmurs rippled through the room, eyes rolled, and someone in the back muttered in frustration. Then came the real flashpoint, his stance on the Israel-Gaza conflict. When he argued against an immediate ceasefire, insisting it wasn't the right step, the atmosphere snapped. A single boo rang out, sharp and unmistakable. Starmer paused, clearly shaken. Before he could steady himself, another voice joined in, then another, until the room filled with a rising wave of disapproval. In that moment, the connection with the crowd was gone. He had lost them. The room wasn't merely skeptical, it was beginning to turn against him. From that moment, the situation unraveled fast. The tension was unmistakable, shifting from uneasy quiet to open frustration. At first it was subtle, low whispers, uneasy glances, people shifting in their seats. But once the first boo cut through the room, everything changed. The murmurs swelled into open complaints. Some shook their heads in disbelief while others leaned together, trading irritated remarks. The frustration that had been quietly building finally burst into the open. Starmer tried to continue as if nothing had happened, raising his voice to project confidence, but it only made the reaction louder. The more he spoke, the more restless the crowd became. Voices began calling out questions, demanding answers. Near the front, a woman stood and shouted, "What about children's care?" Others quickly echoed her concern, their voices stacking into a wave of criticism. Starmer paused, caught in a brief moment of uncertainty before trying to regain control, but by then, the moment had already slipped away.
True democracy is citizen-led. Politics needs an update. We demand a people's house. We demand a people's house. We are in crisis. We are in crisis. Our whole future is in jeopardy.
The Labour MPs seated behind Starmer looked painfully uncomfortable. One hid his face in a notepad, pretending to take notes, while another clutched her phone like it could shield her from the unfolding disaster. Even Starmer's closest allies seemed desperate to disappear. Then came the final blow. Attendees began walking out. Rows emptied, some muttering under their breath, others giving one last boo as they left. The message was clear: Starmer had lost the room completely, and there was no path to recovery. This wasn't just a bad speech. It was another chapter in a string of missteps leaving his leadership teetering. Long-simmering frustration among Labour supporters had boiled over. Starmer has become disconnected from the people he's meant to represent. His handling of Brexit has only deepened the divide. Once a staunch Remain advocate pushing for a second referendum, he now urges voters to move on, hoping they'll forget. But the memory lingers. Pro-Leave Labour supporters feel abandoned, while Remain supporters feel betrayed. He's managed to alienate both sides.
If he thinks that bothers me, he doesn't know me. Protest or power, that's why we changed our party conference. That's why we changed our party. Thank you.
Starmer's economic plans are full of vague promises about stability and fiscal responsibility, rhetoric that sounds more at home in a Conservative playbook than Labour's platform. On foreign policy, his refusal to support a Gaza ceasefire has ignited anger even within his own party. Long-time Labour supporters, who once viewed the party as a champion of justice, now see a leader playing it safe rather than taking a stand. Behind closed doors, whispers of unrest are growing. Some MPs are already weighing their options, and talk of leadership challenges is spreading. Starmer was supposed to be Labour's steady hand, the figure who could rebuild trust and lead the party back to power. But the numbers tell a starkly different story. Approval is slipping, and the Southport fiasco has only deepened the crisis. If he doesn't act fast, his time at the top could be closer to its end than anyone imagined.
The first is on the question of terrorism and what constitutes terrorism. And my concern in this case is that we have clearly got an example of extreme violence, individualized violence, that we have to protect our children from and our citizens from. And it is a new threat. It's not what we would have usually thought of as terrorism when definitions were drawn up, when guidelines were put in place, when the framework was put in place. And we have to recognise that here today, because I think most people would say, looking at the facts of this case, it's clearly extreme violence, it's clearly intended to terrorise. And I completely accept and understand that, and that is my view. Therefore, we have to make sure that the law and the framework for responding is appropriate to the new threat that we face. And there we will make whatever changes are necessary in the law.
If the Southport speech wasn't damaging enough, Starmer's latest move has left Labour supporters bewildered. For years, the party cast itself as a firm opponent of Donald Trump, condemning his policies, his divisive rhetoric, and his influence on global affairs. Starmer himself had been vocal in criticizing Trump's leadership. But now, suddenly, he's pivoting, praising Trump's handling of certain international issues and suggesting closer UK collaboration. The same Trump Labour once labelled a threat to democracy. The shift has left supporters asking one question: what changed? Some MPs are outraged, calling it a betrayal of the party's core principles, while others remain cautious, clearly uneasy with the reversal.
On the second point, yes, of course I was kept up to date with the facts as they were emerging. That is usual practice. But just like you, as a journalist, I had to observe the law of the land. It was not my personal decision to withhold this information, any more than it was a journalist's personal decision not to print or write about it. That is the law of the land that is in place for the reasons I've set out, to protect the integrity of the system, to ensure that the victims and their families get the justice that they deserve.
Grassroots Labour members aren't just confused, they are furious. Social media is flooded with lifelong supporters accusing the party of abandoning its core values. If Starmer thinks shifting his stance to woo Conservative voters will pay off, he's taking a huge gamble, risking the very base that has backed Labour for decades. The party is at a crossroads, wrestling with its identity. Is it still the progressive force championing social justice? Or has it become a centrist machine bending for political convenience under Starmer's leadership? The uncertainty alone is damaging, and Starmer is at a critical turning point. Can he recover? Or has his approach already put him on a downward path? His team might try to frame this as a one-off, just a tough crowd, or a minor stumble in the rough world of politics. But this was more than a hiccup. It was a public rebuke from the very people he depends on, part of a growing pattern of eroding support that is becoming impossible to ignore.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery.
Keir Starmer aimed to unite Labour and win back voters, but is now facing one of the toughest tests of his leadership. A speech meant to inspire confidence instead exposed deep divisions and sent support sliding. Critics accuse him of betraying Brexit, while his shifting stance on foreign policy is fueling doubt and mistrust. The boos in Southport weren't just a reaction to one speech. They were a clear warning sign. The big question now: can Starmer recover, or is this the beginning of Labour's decline under his leadership? Will he course correct, or will the backlash continue to grow? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more on political drama, major controversies, and the stories the media often overlooks. The story isn't over yet.